students. We are back in the studio today and we are talking about cups with handles, which is one of my favorite forms to make and is the project that you are going to be doing next. Making 4 cups with handles. They can all be different, but they all have to be thrown, they all have to be functional, and they all have to be handles with a trimmed foot. So let's talk a little bit about what makes a good cup. I've drawn some profiles here for you to look at. Here I have profiles of cups that are whimsical yet still really functional, have a nice form and a lively characteristics. But you'll notice that the handles are making sense with the form. They're not scaled way out. They're not giant Flintstone handles. The size of the feet match the proportions of the cup. And you can have the ubiquitous straight coffee mug if you want to, but with a nicely pulled handle and a nicely trimmed foot, it becomes really smart and elevated. Now, talking about forms that might not work are forms that look like these. Even though that this is a very cool looking object where it's really wide, has a lot of volume, the mouth or the lip of the cup flares out really far, and this would just cause liquid to splash out on either side of the cup and all over your face. So even though it looks great, the functionality is not really great for hot liquids. Also, a cup like this that has a very narrow top, you wouldn't be able to fit your nose into it to get a good sip of coffee. So you have to think a lot about the functionality and the engineering of the forms that you want to drink out of, as well as just cool curvy shapes. So to get started with making my cup, I'm going to start off with a piece of clay, a ball of clay that I cut off the bag of clay, and it's about the size of a softball or a small grapefruit. And you want to make sure that whenever you're making anything, that you pat it into a nice round ball so it's easier for you to center. You're going to take your clay and with a dry wheel head, you want to take the ball of clay, find the center, and then snap it down. So I'm going to push this down to make sure that my clay is really centered. And then I'm going to start sealing the clay down. One thing, students, that I want you to notice is that I am going counterclockwise. If your wheels are going clockwise, that's a very Eastern way of throwing, but here in the States, we like to throw counterclockwise, and that's how I like you to learn. So I have my wheel going. I'm going to take my hands that are very wet, and my clay is wet and shiny. I'm going to squeeze my clay up into the cone shape, like how we learned to center. Got some helicopters overhead. And now I'm going to go down with my karate chop action. Look at that. Happens to me too. And center up my ball of clay. I'm going to squeeze again from the bottom really firmly. Remember, you move the clay does not move you. You tell the clay who's boss. Go down again and tuck the heel of your hand in. So now I have a very center ball of clay. But just for good measure, I'm going to cone it up one more time and bring it back down again. Once again, tuck in the heel of my hand, roll it up. And then one way you can check to make sure that your clay is centered really well is take your wooden rib or your wooden stick and draw a line. If your line's going all the way around, you're good to go. Now I'm going to slow my wheel down a hair, and I'm going to open my ball of clay. I go straight down into my ball of clay and I stop just shy of the bottom, and this is where I'll stop. Find my needle tool. Which of course is not here. grab the bottom of the clay, put my finger up to it, pull it out, and check the depth. And I should be about 1/2 inch of thickness. Now that I've opened my ball of clay, I'm going to spread the floor. So I put my fingertips inside, and I drag my fingertips towards myself and open up the floor of the pot. I only open this up about 2 inches. Now that I've got this kind of bubbly donut here, I'm going to lean this clay in on either side so it's more straight, and it'll be easier for me to bring the clay up rather than wrestle it because it's already out. So I'm going to take my left hand, put my left fingertips on the inside. I'm going to take my right hand, my right hand and wrap it around my thumb. So I have this pinching mechanism here that will help me squeeze the clay from the bottom and pull it straight up. So I'm going to squeeze from the bottom and do a really light pull to begin with, just to thin out my clay. Get some water, compress my lip, put some more water in my pot, and then I'm going to squeeze again from the bottom and pull the clay up. It's very common to lift your clay and have it flare out. That just means that you're pushing way too hard with your left hand out, and you need to be pushing more with your inside hand. And then I'll do another squeeze from the bottom. And pull my clay up into a nice straight cylinder. I'm going to fish all the water out from the inside because you don't want to have resting water on the inside. And then I'm going to look over my form. I feel like there's some more clay I can get out from the bottom here. So my hands have to separate at this point. You can cross your hands and put your thumb over if you want to touch your two hands together. Or you can just slip your whole hand inside and just pull straight up and have your fingertips be across from each other. Sometimes this is difficult for new potters. So I pulled up my clay. I have a nice straight cylinder, but if I want to give my form a little bit of shape, do something interesting, how would I do that? Well, you want to make sure that your clay is nice and slick. And I'm simply going to sort of draw the shape that I want to make with my inside hand. So I'm going to push out from the bottom, and I'm going to gently press the clay out, and I'm going to support it with my right hand on the outside and increase the volume of my cup till it becomes really round. Remember what I said before though, you don't want to make things too round and then nip them in, because the direction of the liquid, the coffee inside, will spill out all over. You want to make sure that your curves are very fluid and that there's like a line or a direction that the liquid can go in very smoothly. So now I'm going to take my sponge. I'm going to clean up the outside. I'm going to always compress my lip. And the thing about a cup that makes it so important is that it does touch your lip. So your lip of your cups that you make should be rounded and smooth. They should be soft and rounded and thin, not sharp, and not have any raggedy edges. Okay, now I'm going to stop my wheel. Oh, I'm going to keep my wheel going actually. And I'm going to take my wooden stick and undercut the bottom of my clay. I want to have a nice clean edge. Students, this is a very important step that you do this. Now I'm going to take my wire tool. I'm going to put a little puddle of water down and drag my wire tool and the water underneath the cup. The water will keep your cup from sticking to the wheel. And it'll help cut it away from the wheel. Now, I have a board here. It's ready to go. I'm gonna set it down right in front of my cup here. And I'm gonna slide my cup onto my hand, lift it very carefully from the bottom, and set it onto my board. Now, in order to make a lot of good cups, I should fill this board up all in one day, because to get a couple of really good cups, you're gonna have to make a lot. Thanks, students. I'll trim this in a little bit.